Solved the mystery of masking automatically using MAutoDynamicEQ, but I discovered something else interesting about it as well. So basically what you do first is you choose a track you want to reduce the volume on when another sound occurs. So that's where the dynamic implementation occurs. And so what's going to happen there is it automatically ducks the sound you want to reduce every time another sound performs. So that's why I have two MAutoDynamic EQs going here, and you of course could have even more to go to more tracks. So for instance, if I wanted to preserve this track, or a vocal track, or a backing track, or whatever, I would set up the MAutoDynamic EQ on the track that I don't want to preserve as much. So here's an effect. So what I did there is one additional thing, and that's what this one is. So the first one, I'm just ducking the bass every time the drum's coming in so that the drum is most audible. That's why it's preserved. So when the bass is going, the drum is more loud. And what's happened is I know approximately the part of the bass that I want to reduce. And so I can easily reduce just by looking at the spectrum within the bass. So right here, you have like this giant peak. So every time the drum comes in, it's gonna duck right there. Okay, so that's the simple part. And then what happens is you set that up very simply by choosing sidechain, and the sidechain in this case is the drum, but that's actually the track we're preserving, which is what makes it confusing. So I could have this sidechain going for multiple parts just within this one sidechain. So if I wanted to preserve more of the drum sound, I could reduce even more of the bass by creating another node like this, have it listen to sidechain, and then on this number 5, I choose how much either dynamic reduction or dynamic increase I want. So I'm going to go down. So now when I play the drum, both 2 and 5 should go down. So, but the other thing that's the cool part is I realized I could have it process another track, and the track is a ghost track. It's not even audible, and so it's basically just using the information that this rhythm, which is the same as this drum, is providing, which is what's happening with this second MAutoDynamic EQ. So we have 1, 2. And so what I've done is it's going to this double. And that's why you see nothing happen until this kicks in. And that's just done with the same concept of choosing this, listening to the sidechain, except in this case we're listening to another sidechain. But what I actually intended to do with this was to have like a way to listen to multiple tracks simultaneously for each track. So for the track that's the least important, I set up MAutoDynamicEQ, and I choose the more important track that I want to preserve. So let's say it's this one again. Well, let's choose a different audio track. I don't know what the limit is to the number of sidechains you can have within a channel. That's crazy that you can keep going and going with this. So now we would be listening to this track. Let's choose a different one. So now I'd be listening to this track, which is this one right here. and I'd have to set up the whole thing again where it says, hey, go over here and sidechain this. And so once again, so I have three MAutoDynamic EQs, and they're each listening to a different track. And the whole point of that is, let's say the vocal comes in, and I don't want the drum I don't want the bass to interfere too much with the vocal. So every time I know like the vocal spectrum is somewhere around this range, so I could have the bass duck once again every time the vocal would come in automatically. And I simply just choose the amount of the ducking by using my dynamics contour here. And the gain's not really affected like that with this process. That could be set up a different way, but in this case, just the dynamics is affected. So every time, let's say the vocal would go, the number 4 is ducking down when the vocal is going. And I can, of course, set this anywhere I want to duck, or I could have the tone increase when the vocal came in. But in this context, what we're trying to do here is have certain sounds we're preserving more than others, and we're carving out as much of the frequencies as possible to preserve as much as possible in all of the tracks. So that's why theoretically you could have something like 10 MAutoDynamic EQs set up to listen to multiple tracks, but it gets much more complicated because each track would have those 10 MAutoDynamic EQs listening to the other 9 tracks. Anyway, that's really all confusing, so I'm going to leave it at that. But just to give an example of how you can not only unmask, but you can remask.